Hey everyone, Colin here. We're running a short survey to get better information on who listens to the show, and we're giving away free Blockspace gear if you fill it out. If you find value in our shows or listen consistently, you can do me a huge favor and fill out the form. It takes about 30 seconds and helps me and the Blockspace team keep the show running. You can find a link to the survey in the show notes. Thanks.
80,000 Bitcoin from 2011 has just moved and sent the internet into a flurry. Is this an ancient whale waking up? Is this a legal notice gone wrong? What's going on? A lot's been happening. Elon has broken from Trump. What does this mean for Bitcoin? Also, Bitcoin all-time highs. We're going to talk about all this and more on Bitcoin Season 2. Welcome back to Bitcoin Season 2. We had a lot happen this week, and we're gonna cover it. This is me, Charlie, and Colin of Blockspace Media hosting Bitcoin Season 2. We are the screenwriters of this particular season of Bitcoin. So if you have an issue with the plot, let us know, and we'll...
If you do have an issue with the plot, then there's something wrong with you, because this is Writer's Room all-time high edition. Bitcoin is peaking up just above $113,000. It's been on a run since yesterday. It set an all-time high yesterday, set an all-time high today. How high are we going to go? We don't know. We don't write that far ahead, but we do know that Orange Coin is juicing and it keeps people happy.
Orange Coin and Orange Man, there's a lot of topics, but I think the first thing is, Colin, let's get into these old Bitcoin waking up. I had numerous people send me various articles, people like Bitcoiners, people that kind of dialed into the Bitcoin news beat, send me articles and things about, saying, there's 80,000 Bitcoin that hasn't been touched since 2011, and it's finally moving. And there are some interesting things associated with this, which have been the subject of conspiracy. But I mean, you know this as well as I do, Colin. Like, whenever old Bitcoin wakes up and it's a large amount, an old wallet, it's always a news event. Now, it's normally like maybe 100, maybe 1,000 Bitcoin, but this is like the largest one in a long time, maybe the largest. We're looking at, I think it's like 1 point something billion US dollars.
No, it's 8 billion. It's 8 billion. It's 8.1 billion. It's like 8.13 billion.
Yeah.
Current prices. It's a lot of cheddar.
Yeah. It's a ton of Bitcoin. So, I will share this with you. I'm going to use as an example this article. I strain to use the word article from this news site, finger quotes, news site called CypherTux. This is the article that many people sent me. And what's wild about this particular narrative cycle is that a lot of these people have been sending me this specific article. And if you read this article and you get a few lines into it, you'll start to, like, if you hang out on ChatGPT or Claude, you will notice that this is very clearly written by an LLM. Like, this is, an O3 generated news story, and it's like dripping with language model idiosyncrasies. And so, like, I just want to take a moment to pause and step back and say, these are internet native people who are now sending me FUD articles that are produced by language models, not having any clue that these are AI generated. That is to say, there are some points in this article which is poorly written, which do make for some fun conspiracy. So there's about 10,000 BTC per address, and they started moving on July 4th, Independence Day. Ooh. And I won't go into everything. I'll keep this brief. But before that, we saw these same addresses, one of these addresses on Bitcoin Cash, the other chain. We saw one of those addresses send some Bitcoin on that blockchain. Now, it is a different blockchain, and you might consider this a test transaction. It's pretty common for people to make a test transaction just to make sure that the old wallet, the old blockchain's warm, so they don't accidentally, it's, I guess it's a little bit of it's just commonplace. Even the OGs still make test transactions. But, a test transaction on a different blockchain, may indicate that this is a compromised private key. So that maybe this is an old wallet, old private key, which has been compromised or somehow stolen. And this could be an indication that they're trying to use that same private key, which before the Bitcoin Cash split, signs for the same addresses. Maybe they're trying to make sure that that private key works to send the the corresponding addresses of Bitcoin on Bitcoin Cash, so that maybe it, flies under the radar, so that anyone monitoring these large, $1 billion addresses doesn't notice. So there's that thing. And then there's another fun subject of conspiracy where days before these funds moved, you had some transactions be sent to those wallets where they included a message in OpReturn, like an actual human text readable message in OpReturn to those wallets that say something to the equivalent of, we're giving you a legal notice. We have taken possession of this wallet and its contents. You have to prove that you have ownership of this wallet. Otherwise, we will legally consider it abandoned and we will take possession of it. So, and it links out to a particular website and what appears to be some kind of corporation called the Solomon Group. And, are these things related? Is this a wallet which has been compromised or seized or abandoned? We don't know. I'll just cut right to the chase. We have BitMEX Research, one of the few good real research accounts out there. They went and actually emailed and reached out to this corporation, which is linked in these messages of notice. They reached out to the advisory board members who are named as advisory to this corporation. And the overwhelming response is that it's probably a scam. So we confirm that some of these people are in fact real people and on a board, at least in an email reply, and that they don't have knowledge of this. So this is as per BitMEX Research. The board does in some part appear to be legitimate, but not really have knowledge of these things. So this is an ongoing story, but basically this type of messaging strategy where you message, an old wallet on Bitcoin with a message in OpReturn, which has some kind of scary legal boogeyman message in it. This is actually a pretty common tactic that Calvin Ayre has used over the years. If you're not familiar with Calvin Ayre, he is the former billionaire who funds Craig Wright, the guy who's been claiming to be Satoshi and suing Bitcoin Core developers. So this is actually a strategy that he has used before to take these messages and try to use them in court to basically harass legally various notable people in Bitcoin. I'm not saying that that's what this is, but this has the hallmarks of an unrelated, just inexpensive to execute, kind of goofy attack that happens to coincide with the movement of these funds. I've talked a lot, Colin. I'm going to throw it to you. You are not as deep in the weeds on this as I am, but when you see a big address move, when you see a big address move, what's your usual initial take?
Yeah, to me, it's usually, okay, an OG or a whale is moving funds, cashing out, or just taking them somewhere else. Or, if it's 2010, 2011, it's hard to say this. It's like an exchange operator. But I don't think that's what's happening here. Exchanges have pretty high churn on the coins that they hold, right?
Yeah.
One note about Calvin Ayre. I always said Air, but I guess that's wrong. Before I hop into
he incurs the wrath and ire. That's how I think about it.
There you go. That makes sense. Most people don't realize this, but Calvin bankrolled probably all of the BSV mining operations. So Bitcoin Satoshi's Vision was a fork of Bitcoin Cash that happened, I believe, in 2018, if I'm recalling correctly. And it was a huge civil war in the Bitcoin Cash ecosystem after obviously Bitcoin Cash had its civil war with Bitcoin back in 2016, 2017. But anyway, Calvin's kind of this shadowy figure, a lot of weird stuff surrounding him, some unsavory allegations that we won't get into right now, but needless to say, a seedy character. That brings me into the legal message, which is weird for a number of reasons. Number one, if you're a law firm or you're giving counsel to someone, I don't think that you are going to tell them, hey, put a legal notice on a public database for everyone to see, rather than just sending that to the supposed owner of that address. Maybe they didn't have the owner. Still a weird thing to do. The other thing, so first, I just don't even know under what world like that would be something that would be encouraged. Also kind of a strange thing to potentially commit a crime and hack a wallet. I'm not saying that's what happened here. I don't think that is what happened, but you're like, hey, by the way, like this is ours now.
Yeah.
You forfeited it. Maybe it was, to be charitable, maybe this was held by a counterparty, and there was a clause at some point that said, if you do not, like, kind of like asset forfeiture, if you do not give us a notice or, do something under the contractual agreement, then we end up taking control of this. I find that hard to believe for $8 billion worth of Bitcoin, but hey, weirder things have happened. There's a part of me that almost wonders if this notice is almost like plausible deniability for someone being like, hey, I don't have access to these Bitcoin anymore. Didn't you see the offer turn? The offer turn proves that I don't own these anymore. All that being said, it's very strange. It almost reminds me of a limited hangout that agencies will use to kind of throw people off the trail of an otherwise stinky situation, so to speak, right? So like a limited hangout from, someone like the CIA or another intelligence agency is when they throw limited amounts of information on a topic of interest with the public so that they can latch onto that and kind of miss the bigger story elsewhere. So I almost wonder if there's something going on with this. If I had to have my guess, though, there were a lot of colorful theories going around with this. A Coinbase engineer actually said that this was maybe a hack. I'm not sure. Maybe that's true. More often than not, and anytime this happens, you have people messaging you about it and both in Bitcoin and without, saying, oh, did you see this news story? And it's kind of like, yeah, I mean, that's a lot of money, but this stuff happens every day. I mean, you'll always see the hype accounts on Bitcoin Twitter saying, like, entity moves $2 billion for 20 cents.
Like if you want Bitcoin to go up. Yeah.
So I don't really know what to make of this. You're going to have a good piece for us next week, though, for the Blockspace newsletter, kind of diving into not just this, as I understand your thing is the piece correctly, but just kind of the history of early Bitcoin adopters and their massive treasure chests and what ends up happening with those coins, either lying dormant or getting moved. So.
Yeah. Again, if you're interested in more of this story, I'll be doing a related piece on this next week in the Blockspace newsletter, blockspace.media, to check that out, or link in the description. So yeah, some great conspiracy to be had around this address. My default assumption, just an OG whale waking up. That's usually what it is, but we don't know. How useful is it to speculate on this? It's more just good, like, conversation, good armchair, like, table conversation. Okay.
People love it. I mean, who doesn't love hearing about some dude who held Bitcoin when it was worth nothing to $8 billion?
Yeah. Yeah. Maybe they found that old computer hard drive they threw away and they got that wallet.dat file and they're like, yeah.
That's a story, a total side note that always comes into the media scope whenever Bitcoin runs, is the poor sucker in the UK that is currently trying to, I don't know if he's trying to buy the dump or he's been like basically extorting his or not extorting.
there's a landfill and he's trying to petition to like the the local council
to let him basically
dig up
the landfill to try to find his hard drive, which is no doubt corroded, but worth a couple $1 billion at this point.
It was like 200 million many years ago. And so, I mean, we're talking, it's now 10 figures. So, I mean,
this has been a story since I first started reporting on Bitcoin in 2017. I mean, this guy's been trying for almost a decade now. I just, honestly, I feel really bad for him, but, that's neither here nor there. Just goes to show that there are a lot of people with stories like that.
Hey, Will here with Blockspace Media. Did you know that we have individual feeds for all our shows? If you're watching the Mining Pod, Bitcoin Season 2, or the Court Show, be sure to check out the individual feeds. You can find them on your podcast player of choice, whether that be Spotify, Apple, YouTube, etc. Just type in Blockspace Media and you'll find all our shows pop up, or just type in the individual show name like the Mining Pod or Bitcoin Season 2. Be sure to hit that subscribe and give us a 5-star rating so we can continue to bring you the best content in Bitcoin.
Let's go on to, I think, something which is equally fun to talk about, and yet will not. I'll just spoil it. We don't have a resolution for this either. But this is the past news of the past week or two, which is Elon is officially breaking from Trump. The dynamic duo, the inseparable, the boys who
the whiz kid and the popular kid, the the nerd.
They've had a falling out, and it happened on Elon's platform X. No, it actually happened on they each on their own social media platforms were shitting on the other person.
There's something amazing about all of this. I'm gonna go ahead and share this article, but when you think about how just absurd this is, that two billionaires, one of whom is the president, the other of whom is, like, I guess on any given day, the richest man in the world, you know, depending on what Tesla stock is doing versus Amazon, etc. But you have the two billionaires, sitting president of the United States, and one of the most powerful men in the world, blasting each other on social media companies that they respectively own.
On the social media platforms that they each own. It's the most passive aggressive shit. Because, like, Trump was like truth socialing on Truth Social, and Elon was responding indirectly on his own platform X. It's like we all feel like the child whose parents are like arguing by proxy through each other. And we're just like, please fix the goddamn economy.
And it's funny too, because this is like the 21st century equivalent of a bunch of media barons kind of just, you know, absolutely harpooning each other on the front page of the New York Times or the Wall Street Journal.
Yeah.
But obviously the power center for attention and for news has completely shifted to these other platforms.
Yeah.
But all that being said, somehow Bitcoin is a black hole. Everything gets sucked into it in some way, whether it be money or attention. Bitcoin has now entered the conversation here, as Elon Musk is saying that not only will he establish the American Party, the third party to try to piggyback, I guess, on the MAGA populism that has been Trump's brand. And he's saying that he's not only starting a new party, but that Bitcoin will be at the center of it because fiat is hopeless. Elon Musk says his new political party, I am quoting from the block here by an article by Danny Park, that his new political party, the American Party, will embrace Bitcoin. And he says fiat is hopeless. It doesn't really seem like there is too much out here other than him just throwing that out, because that's my kind of first thing with this is Trump said he was going to support Bitcoin. Now, what did that get us? So far, didn't get us an
SBR.
The charitable take, though, is that it opens the path for an SBR. He signed an executive order saying they're going to look into that and see what that would look like. Maybe take some of the Exchange Stabilization Fund, which is a federal fund for playing in Forex markets, and convert some of that to Bitcoin. Maybe just not selling the Bitcoin that the U.S. government currently holds from seizure and from things like the Silk Road. On the SBR side, that's what we have. We also have gotten a rollback of the broker rule from the SEC, which basically barred banks from holding cryptocurrency on their balance sheets and from engaging in certain services with crypto companies. We've gotten a repeal of Choke Point 2.0 and a dashing of that shadow operation that was pretty widespread under the current administration. And we've had a few of these, and then we had the Genius Act, which is not related to Bitcoin, but has stuff in there for stable coins. So we've gotten some meaningful policy wins on the Trump side of things. Now, whether or not this is a good thing kind of depends on where you fall in the anarcho-capitalist versus Bitcoin is eventually going to eat finance, spectrum. And that means finance eating Bitcoin as well. But at the end of the day, it is, I would say, the most proactive any president has been about Bitcoin since they started. Now, there also came with a bunch of baggage, like the Trump and Melania meme coin, World Liberty Fi, Trump NFTs, and just, the flywheel of grift that the Trump administration likes to use when it sees a good opportunity and capitalizes on it, right? So my question then for Elon and the America Party is, what does supporting Bitcoin actually look like? Does this mean accepting it as a campaign donation, which I believe the Trump administration already did, and so did, like RFK during his run before he dropped out to endorse Trump? Does it look like, mandating Bitcoin as legal tender, which I don't really think you should necessarily do? You shouldn't mandate it. You should maybe exempt it from taxation. And but that's my next thing. The biggest thing I think from most Bitcoiners' perspectives, in terms of how you can support Bitcoin as a political candidate is, number one, you leave it the fuck alone and you just don't try to regulate it because you don't need any of these weird control mechanisms that they're trying to set up to regulate the industry. And number two, you just eliminate capital gains for it, right? I think that would probably be the upper bound of support for Bitcoin. Anything short of that, I feel like is kind of lip service for what's already been lip service that doesn't really build on what's already been done.
It doesn't make sense. If it's money, it's not really something you put capital gains on. Although, to be realistic, given that it's going up forever, Laura, I have a hard time imagining that's ever going to happen anytime. Like it's
never going to happen unless literally I think the nation state as we understand it today collapses. That will not happen.
Yeah, which, if you've been monitoring the situation over the past 6 months, that could happen any day, which is a perfect transition into what I kind of want to, leave this episode on, which is, this is Thursday afternoon that we're recording this. You're probably listening to this on Saturday morning. We just crossed over 13K or 113K. This is an unrelenting price advancement. And it's like, we have the memory of a goldfish. If you think about it, there have been multiple, maybe you're like insulated and in the nothing ever happens camp. Good, smart, that's wise. But a lot of the rest of the world, and particularly like the Western media, has been in an absolute chaotic whipsaw. And let's just review some of these like economic doomsday predictions coupled with like maybe global chaos doomsday predictions, which have happened just in 2025. And this has roiled markets and caused people to say everything's over for all markets and Bitcoin. And yet here we are, all-time S&P all-time high, Nasdaq all-time high, Bitcoin all-time high, gold ripping. Like, it's the real secret is just to sit on your hands and do nothing, turn off the news and DCA Bitcoin. It's like that simple. But let's just like kind of review. So the main narrative has been the doomer predictions around tariffs. And this is for good reason. Like having, major punitive tariffs on other countries from the US is not very good for free markets and would at the very least on the short term have negative effects on a lot of the American economy. Yet, where are the tariffs? We do see some. It hasn't really the fear of tariffs, whether they will or won't, or to what magnitude be implemented, have not really like seemed to affect the markets that much on a smoothed average. And yet, I remember, Colin, like multiple times in February, March, April, like people thinking that it was actually Jover. Like, I mean, look at the
Jover.
It's so Jover. I mean, Bitcoin did pull back to like 75K.
Totally. I mean, markets were in free fall. The S&P and the Nasdaq and the Dow shed 15-ish%, maybe more. and people were calling for a recession. I mean, most of the major banks in the US ticked up their recession prediction to above 50%. And then you had the MAGA camp on the other side saying, no, Trump is playing 4 or 5, 6D chess. And in some ways, they're seeming kind of vindicated right now because the Trump administration did end up brokering trade deals with a lot of key partners. But now it seems like we might be strapped in for some more volatility because he's just coming out and saying 15% on copper, or 50% on copper. We're going to Brazil. We're going to tariff Brazil. It kind of seems like it's open season again. You know, I generally kind of fall in a kind of middle ground here. I think a lot of people assume that Trump just shoots from the hip and doesn't know what he's doing. I think that shooting from the hip is what he knows how to do, right? And I think that there is more rational thinking behind these things than not. But to your point about having short memories, I don't know if we're just in a new environment and kind of a new paradigm where everything moves so quickly that markets are almost thinking, well, this is bad news, but good news is right around the corner, or this bad news is counteracted with this good news. I think that generally speaking, though, most people who are playing the markets right now are really kind of banking on a Fed rate cut this year and kind of like ascribe to the Lynn Alden thesis, nothing stops this train, because, I mean, the big, beautiful bill just got passed. Despite all of the Doge efforts to cut, waste in the government, I think they ended up getting in the ballpark of 150 billion, which is just nothing, right? That's not going to have any meaningful impact.
Great job. 150 billion is a lot of money. It's nothing compared to the overall GDP and debt issue, which was the mission and the stated goal of balancing it. Anybody with half a brain knew that this was likely a swan song and probably not going to happen. But you got to root for him at some level. At least somebody says they're going to try. So,
right. 100%. Yeah. And that's a lot of the Trump and Musk fallout, although there's probably a lot more behind the scenes that we're not seeing. But, Musk has opined on social media that he feels like everything he did at Doge was just a waste of time because of the big, beautiful bill. A lot of people share that sentiment. There's been a lot of kind of, a lot of personal digs on both sides, and also Trump just straight up in the big, beautiful bill in Congress, exempting EVs from tax credits and tax privilege status and things like that. But I don't want to really spend too much time on Elon and Musk, but all of it.
There's that, but it's, so you have the drama at the national level, yet if you zoom out and you squint a little bit, there's all the markets are just up and to the right. It's really hard to justify this idea that it's all Jover. Rather, I think the party gets to continue on a little bit longer. On that note, there was a moment 2 to 3 weeks ago where I think everyone has already forgotten about this. It was the are we going to nuclear war with Iran fear? If you recall, there's been the Israel-Palestine thing for a while. Don't want to dwell too much on that. But as Israel goes on the aggro against Iran and the U.S. kind of runs assistant, we have a long and storied history with Iran. It's nuclear in nature, and I would go outside of my little bubble of Bitcoin Twitter, and I would go onto Facebook or in real life, and I would see the most doomer, pessimistic people in the world thinking that we were going to go to nuclear war. And I've never felt so disconnected. I feel like these people just forgot that we made it through the Cold War for 30 years without nuking each other. And the markets have responded accordingly. We didn't nuke each other and markets continue to go up. It's kind of like this. Wars are for buying, or the threat of war is for buying. You sell if a nuke is dropped. And I will always bet against the nuke being dropped, because if a nuke is dropped, then there's really no position you can have, which is safe. So like this is
that position is in a bunker with 1,000 rounds of ammo and 1,000 cans of food.
Yeah. And that person is the most miserable person in the happy path. So I'll take the optimistic scenario. But, I just want to like reflect on that because we had a bunch of things this year and we're sitting at an all-time high, and the Fed looks even more, more and more dovish as each month goes on. And it's like hard not to be more bullish than ever on a short timeline, short being like 2 to 5 years. And I want to like encourage the listener, like maybe your bags are in the S&P, maybe they're in Bitcoin. Hopefully they're more Bitcoin than anything. But like this is we always live in interesting times, and what the tried and true strategy is to buy Bitcoin and sit on your hands. It's so much more difficult said than done, and yet through all the chaotic past 6 months, that has been the best strategy. Maybe you're in alts. You're down bad if you're in alts. Bitcoin is like it continues to be the play. Now there may be moments where it's not. There may be moments where you are underperformed or outperformed, but like, bro, it's easy mode. Just buy Bitcoin, close your eyes, and turn off the news. Keep this podcast on because we're the only sane and rational people in the entire world because we're the screenwriters of it. So I just kind of want to like wrap this pod up with reflecting on the chaotic past 6 months and say, are we worried about more tariffs in July and August? Well, maybe. I don't really concern myself that much with those things right now. If there's one thing Trump likes is it's making money, and people feel happier when the stock market's going up. So, you can only be a doomer for so long. I'll throw it back to you for final thoughts, Colin.
I mean, honestly, the doomers and the black pillars so far, I don't want to say they're all the shots they've called are wrong. It's just the culmination of what all of those shots mean has not come to pass, right? That being said, we are in a completely tumultuous time right now. I mean, but someone was making the point that World War III has already kind of started. It's just, it's not as evenly distributed yet. Take that for what you will. Not going to say one way or the other, but this is probably the closest you'll have us get to any sort of generic Bitcoin podcast where we'll just say, if that is true, then just buy Bitcoin, just sit on your hands, I don't know what's in store for the next year or so. I do think that at least for 2025, despite all of the shakeups, despite the tariffs and stuff, we've seemed to duck a recession for now. But I think per Charlie's point about everyone has the memories of a goldfish, that could completely change in a day when a news item comes up and just blows up the entire market. So another thing I would say is go touch grass, go hang out with your family and friends, and plant a garden. Seriously, it is the best thing you can do for your mental health.
It's, when St. Francis of Assisi was asked, what would he do if the world were ending tomorrow? He replied, I would plant a tree. So with that in mind, plant a tree, go buy Bitcoin, and we'll see you all next week. Peace.
Hey everyone, Colin here. We're running a short survey to get better information on who listens to the show. And we're giving away free Blockspace gear if you fill it out. If you find value in our shows or listen consistently, you can do me a huge favor and fill out the form. It takes about 30 seconds and helps me and the Blockspace team keep the show running. You can find a link to the survey in the show notes. Thanks.